kind of greater faith that defines masculinity. The man as a role. He is under God. He is serving his family. And he is
in this room, a skirt, nail polish, and basic emotions all apparently count as threats to masculinity. This is Jubilee's 25 traditional versus 25 progressive men middle ground episode. I don't think these men are actually afraid of skirts or nail polish. I think they're scared of what happens when the rules that they were given about manhood stop working. If you grew up in religious or conservative spaces like I did, then this is going to feel familiar. Why do these men treat masculinity like something that can be contaminated by femininity? And what were they taught to be so scared of? I spent years inside of purity culture Christianity, where femininity was dangerous, gayness was contagious, and biblical manhood meant never looking soft. So I'm not reacting as a neutral commentator. I'm reacting as someone who used to believe a lot of this and had to unlearn it to survive. Before we get into this, quick content note, the Jubilee episode includes some really harmful statements about depression and suicide that I am going to address directly. If you need to skip ahead or click away to take care of yourself, please do that. Your well-being comes first. Let's hit play. Act 1, the skirt panic.
Here in America, that's the reason that they're wearing skirts, is because they are trying to project that they are a female or the opposite sex or gender fluidity or any of that, and it's just nonsense.
What a skirt means in today's society is different. What it represents is that's femininity, yo. Whenever cats are like wearing nail polish, they're a little bit more hyper feminine. Most cats walking around in a skirt, but they're not super braided up.
All right, so apparently the entire structural integrity of manhood hinges on a piece of fabric that swishes when you walk. This is where we are. Let's slow down and name what's actually happening here. A lot of people hear stuff like this and think, wow, insecurity and fair. But the real word here, the word that a lot of us did not grow up with, is fragility. And I don't mean fragile like breakable china or men crying over pumpkin spice memes. I mean fragile as in rigid. When an identity is built around avoiding something, don't be feminine, don't be soft, don't be like women, don't be like gay men, don't be emotional. Then anything that even resembles forbidden, that forbidden thing, it feels like a threat. So yeah, if your whole definition of manhood is I'm not feminine, then yeah, I mean, a skirt is suddenly going to become this radioactive symbol of everything you're supposed to avoid. And this is why masculinity feels so unstable for these guys. Not because masculinity is fragile, but because the version they inherited is basically a Jenga tower made of don't you dare. And they're terrified that someone might pull the wrong block. Okay, hang on. This man said, I am traditional and I'm gay. What?
Agree with that at all. I am a gay man, and my experiences.
The other men looked like their internal software crashed or something. They were trying so hard to hold their worldview together, and Jubilee really just said, let's add a little chaos to the patriarchy. Let's throw in a gay man with traditional family values. And nothing will confuse this group more. This moment proves the point. Even inside of their own team, the rules don't make sense. The rules are so rigid, so purity-based, so allergic to anything feminine or queer that the minute a real human being walks in, the whole system glitches. And that's fragility, not weakness, not a lack of masculinity, just an identity built on avoiding entire categories of humanity instead of actually knowing who you are. Act 2, men policing men.
Now, like, if we walk down the street, like, I may interact with you a little bit differently just because, like, I see the fact that you're wearing nail polish. It shouldn't be open, common practice. Go to school wearing a skirt. You go to school wearing a skirt, it's gonna be rough for you. He's obviously counterculture, right? Like, if he's like the emo punk kind of guy. Also, like, borderline, like, devil worship at times.
Devil worship?
Yeah, borderline, like, devil worship.
Apparently, nail polish is a gateway drug to the underworld. This is the part where things get interesting, because this part has nothing to do with masculinity. This is about policing men so that they don't accidentally wander into anything coded as feminine. Allow me to introduce you to a term that sounds fancy, but is actually very simple. Gender contamination logic. All that means is this. These men with these traditional values believe things like femininity spreads, queerness spreads, softness spreads. In purity-based cultures, religious or not, anything feminine is treated like it can rub off on men and corrupt them. It's not just, I don't like nail polish. It's, if I get too close to this, people will think I'm feminine, and femininity is dangerous. And the funniest part, to me at least, is that half of the guys who believe femininity can spread like a virus likely went completely maskless to every church super spreader event they could during COVID, but let a man show up wearing just a little bit of nail polish. Suddenly they're epidemiologists. Someone get Fauci on the phone. Anyway, before anyone says femininity is fine on women, let me just gently remind you, no, it isn't. Not in systems like this. Women are allowed to be feminine in the same way toddlers are allowed to use glitter under adult supervision and preferably in a Ziploc bag. Our femininity must serve men or keep men comfortable. So femininity isn't celebrated when it's in women. It isn't even welcomed. Instead, it's contained. And anything feminine that escapes containment, whether a woman expresses it too loudly or a man expresses it at all, well, that gets punished.
Wearing, like, he's obviously counterculture, right? Like, if he's like the emo punk kind of guy. Also, like, borderline, like, devil worship at times.
Devil worship?
Yeah.
Well,
Imagine being so afraid of eyeliner that you think Sephora is some kind of spiritual battleground. Here's what might help all of this click. These guys aren't expressing personal preferences. They're expressing a purity system. In purity systems, everything is designed to fit into two categories: clean or contaminated. You might also call that category unclean or dirty. Depends on your tradition. And femininity, softness, emotion, self-expression, queerness gets dumped into the contaminated bucket. So when they say, I would interact with you differently, what they really mean is, I've been taught to avoid anything feminine because it might get on me. And that's when you can expect them to either act like a dick or a self-righteous savior. That's not preference, that's doctrine. And I recognize this instantly because I was raised in it. And once you've lived inside of that belief system, you can spot it instantly. This isn't about nail polish. It's the same script I grew up hearing. Femininity is dangerous. Femininity is corrupting. Femininity spreads. And if you believe that, then of course, a man with painted nails becomes a threat. Not because nail polish is scary, but because you were taught that masculinity can be lost the moment it brushes up against difference. Act 3. Control, misogyny, and the need for small women.
We want to have a cohesive society that we speak similar things, we believe similar things when it comes to just masculinity in general. Like, I'm in the camp of you provide for your wife, you protect her, you should be a pillar. As men, as a traditional man, it's our job to be strong even when we feel weak.
I don't agree.
We've now moved from skirts are dangerous to men must be pillars of strength at all times to everyone should basically look and act the same. This is the moment where masculinity stops being a personality trait and becomes the entire continental shelf holding up the worldview.
And she's gonna follow my lead and follow what I have to say, because I'm the man. She's got my name. She's got my ring. She's under my roof.
I also have a 16-year-old daughter that I'm also raising to be a traditional.
My vote goes to
the innate ability that my mother has, the connection she has with me.
I think that women are just happier in male-dominated relationships.
I think it's important that we state that the order of God in Christianity is God over Christ, Christ and man, man over woman. And this is...
If you want to go to Walmart at 2 a.m. in the morning because it's 24 hours and you think you're going to be saved, you're not going. So at the end of the day, we as men have to say, oh, you know what? I understand that, but you're not going. And this is the reason why.
My brother, she just wanted toothpaste, not a tactical extraction. The fuck? If you don't calm the hell down... Purity-based masculinity doesn't just police men, it polices women even harder. Most misogynistic men are going to tell you they love women. Misogyny is a hierarchy. It's a system where women must stay small so that men can feel big, where femininity must be contained so that masculinity can have control. In these bubbles, when femininity is devalued, two things happen at the same time. The women get oppressed, and the men lose access to their own humanity. This is why the system feels so high stakes for these guys. Because if women aren't small anymore, and if femininity is no longer contained, then the whole hierarchy collapses. And look at the messaging these men were raised on, explicitly or implicitly. Femininity equals weak. Weak equals sinful. Sinful equals dangerous. So what does that make women? And what does that make feminine or effeminate men? A glitch in the matrix, that's what. This misogyny, masked as traditional values, harms women, harms our bodies, our voices, our identities, our autonomy. I am a mother to sons, and I actually have a heart. So I have to say that misogyny hurts men too. Men raised on rigid masculinity lose access to things like softness, vulnerability, emotional stability, rest, tenderness, nuance, you know, all of the things that make humans human. That's why they cling to this hierarchy so intensely, because it's not just a belief system, it's their entire emotional operating system. If women aren't small and femininity isn't controlled and men aren't pillars, then who are they? And the truth is, they don't know who they are because the system never cared who they were. Only whether men and women obeyed the rules and enforced them on one another. Act 4, the emotional illiteracy crisis.
Are depressed men weak?
Depressed men are weak.
The depression part of it is a weak mindset.
Right, yeah.
From like a biblical standpoint, it says that the righteous man falls 7 times, but he gets back up.
Being strong means coming out of that.
Right.
And not like, because like killing yourself is the weakest to do.
Now, we've reached the part where emotions aren't just suspicious, they're sinful. Sadness is weakness. Depression is failure. Choosing to become no longer living is the weakest thing. This right here is the emotional bankruptcy that purity-based masculinity produces. Earlier, I said that fragility doesn't mean breakable. It means rigid. Rigid. Rigid things can't bend. So, they snap. In these systems, men are expected to patrol everything. Their appearance, their wives, their daughters, but rarely their sons, interestingly enough. Boys will be boys, am I right?
Boys will be boys, and there's nothing wrong with that.
All right. Unless those boys are a little effeminate, then suddenly there's a special camp for that. The one realm that traditional men are forbidden to patrol is their inner world. Traditional masculinity bans the entire emotional alphabet except for anger and silence. Which means when men feel anything outside of those two letters, they literally don't have the vocabulary to name it. Sadness, fear, tenderness, grief. It short circuits the whole system.
Depressed men are weak.
The depression part of it is a weak mindset.
Right, yeah. Because, like, killing yourself is the weakest shit to do.
They're not describing weakness. They're describing emotional illiteracy. They've never been taught how to feel something without punishing themselves for it. And here's where it connects back to misogyny and purity culture. When you grow up in systems built on surveillance, judge them by their fruit, hold one another accountable, rebuke your brother, confess your sins, stay in community so you don't backslide, well, you learn that your emotions are never private. They're data points. They're something that someone could use against you. That's why vulnerability feels so dangerous to them, not because it is, but because they were trained that softness is something people will punish, correct, and weaponize. And it's enforced now in their minds because they are now the enforcers of that standard.
It shouldn't be open, common practice. Go to school wearing a skirt. You go to school wearing a skirt, it's going to be rough for you.
They know exactly what will happen if they reveal vulnerability, because they are now the ones enforcing that weird definition of manhood for the next generation. Traditional masculinity punishes sadness, tenderness, rest, vulnerability, asking for help, not being okay. And then when those men explode, implode, collapse, harm others, harm themselves, well, the system calls it a strength problem. No, it's not a strength problem. It's emotional malnutrition disguised as masculinity. If you teach men their whole lives that emotions are weakness, that softness is sin, that vulnerability is for women, and that femininity equals contamination, then you build men who can't process their interior lives without shame. And that's because shame is the only emotional language they were ever taught. That's not masculinity. That's emotional starvation. Because in their worldview, the only acceptable mental health plan is pray about it, push it down, maybe blame a woman. And here's the tragedy. When men aren't allowed to bend, they break. And systems built on rigidity don't just snap individually, they snap generationally. Act 5, the collapse fear.
A skirt isn't indicative of what a masculine man should represent in today's society. I see hella cats wearing makeups, foundation, eyeliner, all that stuff. We got a lot of over-feminization of a lot of guys.
What do you think about my nail polish? What do you think about my
Like
skinny
me personally, bro, I ain't rocking like that.
Okay.
They may try to hit on you or just other stuff in general.
Okay.
So it's like,
so you're.
Well, welcome to the doomsday prophecy portion of the program. Over-feminization is a problem. Men are losing masculinity. Masculinity is collapsing. Here's the thing that's wild to me. Every example that they give of collapse is just other people having more freedom than they do. Men painting their nails, men talking about their feelings, women not automatically submitting, queer people existing in daylight. That's not collapse. That's equality. I want to say this as clearly as I can because this is the whole video, I think, in one sentence. When a system depends on hierarchy, equality feels like collapse. When your identity is built on being above women, above queer people, above anything feminine, well, then the moment those people step up beside you instead of below you, it feels like the ground is falling out from beneath you, I would imagine. One can only imagine. Do you remember the Jenga tower of don't you dare that I mentioned earlier? Don't be feminine, don't be soft, don't be emotional, don't submit, don't look gay, don't question the hierarchy. That tower only stands as long as everyone agrees to play along. The minute women stop staying small, the minute queer folks stop hiding, the minute men start saying, wait, I kind of like eyeliner and going to therapy. Well, that tower, it starts to wobble. So when they say masculinity is collapsing, what they really mean is the rules that kept me on top aren't working anymore. In purity-based, hierarchy-obsessed bubbles, power is treated like a zero-sum game. If women gain power, then men must be losing it. If queer people gain safety, straight people must be under attack. If men gain access to softness and vulnerability, the whole category of real men must be in danger. But none of that is actually true. What's collapsing isn't masculinity. It's the illusion that one narrow kind of manhood should control everyone else. If femininity is no longer contaminated and women are no longer below, well, then their version of manhood doesn't mean anything. And instead of asking, hey, maybe the logic is bad, they just scream, the culture is collapsing. Here's the secret that most of us eventually figure out. What actually falls apart is the control systems, not the families, not love, not masculinity, not community. What crumbles is the hierarchy. Act 6, final root cause. Here's why all of this feels so familiar to me. I didn't just study this stuff academically for this video. I lived inside of it for 30 years. I was a loud, opinionated, queer teenage girl in purity culture, which means I was basically everyone's favorite cautionary tale. Before adulthood, I got called a Jezebel spirit. I got blamed for men's thoughts because their God gave me a body that was really hard to hide. What's a girl to do? Take it up with your God. I was told that leadership was sinful for women. I was told that my ambitions weren't appropriate. I was told that I had no place behind a pulpit unless maybe if I was singing, but even then, you must be wearing a skirt. I was told that queerness could spread. I was sent to purity conferences where I got to learn to hug from the side because I was well endowed. Hello, brother. Hello, pastor. So when these men treat femininity like a contaminant, I don't hear logic, I hear doctrine. And here's a part that I don't usually talk about, but maybe does matter. I also married a traditional man with traditional family values. He would have been right there on that red side of the room with them. And back then, I would have been at home watching the video, cheering him on for standing up for what's right, even when it's hard, even when you're persecuted. I've also gotten to watch him deconstruct, or at least begin the process of deconstructing every single one of these beliefs piece by piece with me. It's beautiful to watch a man unlearn misogyny, to watch him grow a vocabulary for softness, to watch him reconnect with and heal his inner child, and then watching him raise our sons in a world where they're allowed to express emotions and explore interests that don't necessarily fit a gender script, whether that's glitter glue or gardening or, you know, the love of a good pink hoodie. To be gentle without being punished for it. And just to be clear, this was his work to do. I didn't drag him through deconstruction. I personally don't think that women should ever be responsible for a man's emotional awakening. He chose it, and we just happened to get lucky that we both chose awakening and deconstruction at the same time. It is a literal miracle. It is an exception. I got to have a front row seat, and that was wonderful. I got to see that change is possible, so I know it's possible for men, and I love that hope, and I want to give you that hope. But I also can't recommend, I can't necessarily recommend every situation that you put up with it. I know that men don't have to stay inside of a shrinking box. And the truth is, you cannot build a stable identity just based on avoiding femininity, because femininity isn't the problem. Fragility is. Here's the real takeaway from today. These men don't fear skirts. They don't fear nail polish. They don't fear eyeliner. But they really, really fear what happens when the hierarchy stops protecting them from equality, from emotions, from softness, from anything that they were taught would collapse their identity. And the tragedy is, misogyny breaks everyone. Women first, yes, our bodies, our voices, our possibilities, but men right behind us, starving for emotional safety and connection that they were told they didn't need. Okay, deep breath. We made it. And if conversations like this leave you feeling overstimulated, same. That's why outside of these videos, I run a weekly newsletter called You Needed This. It's basically the calm version of me. It's where we breathe. It's where we practice building rhythms of rest and reflection in order to make room in our lives for self-care and for dreaming to become habits rather than afterthoughts. It's like a weekly pause button, just like a small reset to help you live more intentionally instead of constantly reacting to whatever misogyny throws at you that day. And when you join, I'll also send you my 3-day rest reset. It's 3 days of habits that help you calm your nervous system, clear your brain, and actually like feel like a person again. It's quick, it's gentle, and people are honestly really surprised at how much of a difference can happen in just 3 days. So all of it is obviously free, and I'm going to leave it all linked down below if you're at all interested. And if you enjoyed this breakdown or if it made you think, then feel free to like the video and subscribe. This is a brand new channel, and literally at this point, every single interaction actually goes a long way in helping me grow. So help a mother out, because snacks and Legos are expensive. So if you're liking my vibe, if you like this style, then will you hit that subscribe button? Thank you for overthinking the fragility of masculinity with me today. Why don't you do something super empowering for yourself? Like, why don't you go have a good nap? You deserve it.